Llegamos a Brasil como underdogs. No queremos favoritismo. Venimos a buscar nuestro sueño.
All the other duels are no match for me.
Estaba muy cerca de llegar a la cima.
Our team is by far the best. We're ready for Americas and we will win this event.
Seremos imparáveis.
We know what it's like to be among the best. Our only objective is to show that we are ready to be in the elite again.
O que é preciso para conseguir o maior objetivo do ano? Errar não é uma opção. Não há mais tempo para treino. 6 times por um objetivo.
Estamos construindo um legado no Brasil. Ninguém foi capaz de parar a gente.
Quanto mais duvidam do Xande, mais o Xande cresce. Eu vou mostrar que o problema nunca foi o Xande.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have finally made it. The moment we've been waiting for since the Challenger seasons began all the way back in the winter of this year. It's time for Ascension. Time to determine who will be joining VCT Americas next year. And we are so incredibly excited to bring you the action. Joining me on the desk for today, we've got the brilliant mind of Roy Stronglegs Ahad. And then we've got a man with many words that seldom shall be heard, speaking specifically of Tanner Mutro. Tanner, can you do me a favor and just tap on your mic? Yep. I want to make sure it's working.
Yeah,
okay.
we good.
All right,
Everybody
perfect.
got me.
He's good.
Okay, cool.
Well, we'll make sure he's cleared with production as well, just in case he screwed something up. But obviously, this is what we've been waiting for all season long, Tanner. We've been wanting to get to this point to see who is going to be joining VCT Americas, who's the team that's going to be coming out of the Challenger circuit.
Yeah, it's been obviously here we are very close to the ground with the North American teams, and we saw some stars rise to the top. But this last week or so, right, being able to take a peek at the other regions and see the competition on the other side that are just as good, and everybody's fighting for one spot. I mean, this is going to be an incredible week.
It is hard, though, Roy, not to look at the North American teams and have a little bit of implicit bias because we got to watch them play for such a long time and we know what the teams are capable of. And we always praise North America as the team or the region to watch when you're looking specifically at the Challenger circuit.
Yeah, I mean, we're so familiar with these teams and we've spent so many days with them on broadcasts already. We've watched them. We've kind of been through their entire journey with them. But I honestly, I've been kind of reviewing the other teams and I can't confidently say that we are the strongest region. I think we are a very strong region. Don't get me wrong by any means. But, studying the Brazilian teams, studying the LATAM teams, they're strong contenders, man. It's going to be a really tough tournament for sure.
Well, as we take a look at the teams, we can take a look at the groups and we'll see who's in here for Ascension Americas because there are teams coming in from all different regions. We've got 2 from LATAM, we've got 2 from Brazil, and we've got 2 coming in from North America. Our North American representatives, of course, being M80 and the Guard. The Brazilian representatives, the Union and 00 Nation. And then the LATAM teams for LATAM North and South would be Fusion Esports and 9Z. Fusion kind of a surprise attendant as well. A lot of people would have thought maybe earlier in the year that that would have been 6 Karma, but Fusion ended up coming alive towards the tail end, ended up finding that final spot. So we are really excited to see how the regions are going to stack up against each other as we take a look at this. And we can also take a look at something else. It's important to note that the groups normally would be elimination territory, but because there's 6 teams, it's mostly for seeding. So if you take a look at the bracket, you can get an idea for what the groups mean for these teams. It's not just a seeding match. That's weak terminology. Because if you make it out as the #1 seed, you get a first round bye in the playoff bracket, which is huge. So you get to start in that semifinal spot. You get to kind of skip out on the quarterfinals. And for teams like M80 specifically, or the Union, who come in with incredible win records, they're very prestigious throughout the Challenger circuit. they're happy to avoid a match that they likely will win anyway, so they can take that extra time to prepare for a more important match later in the bracket. So that is important to note. But I think it's time we kind of shift gears and we look at what our first game of the day is going to be. Let's take a look at this M80 Union matchup. Roy, looking at this, it's the two #1 teams coming in from their respective regions, and it's not just #1 teams, it's dominant #1 teams.
Yeah, I mean, dominant is the main keyword, I think, here for me, Bach. Like, they've both come through such a strong showing in their splits and in the playoffs as well. They've pretty much have shown no real weaknesses. Their gameplay from top to bottom has been pretty well established. Like, they have really good strategy. They have really strong players in almost every single role. They're really good at every phases of the rounds. They're pretty much strong from top down.
Looking at Union specifically, they come in with a pretty impeccable record. They were 10-0 since Split 2 started, a 21-5 map differential. That's pretty bonkers. They have second highest round differential or round win percentage, which is actually surprising that they're not #1 given the statistics we already just spit out. But still, an incredible team. And Tanner, one that effectively has home field advantage here. This is a huge bonus for them getting to play in their region for a shot at VCT Americas.
Yeah, something we didn't mention off the top is that these players are on land. So that extra day to maybe prep for that extra matchup being first in your group is huge, especially because the environment is something that a lot of the teams maybe have to overcome. I know specifically for North America, we didn't get that. We had people playing in master bedrooms with, bathrooms in the background, that being specifically M80. But this Union team, not only do they have home field advantage, but they were kind of the underdog until they became the overdog. They're an open qualifier team that just started lighting up everybody as soon as they qualified. Split 1, a couple of losses, but since then, I mean, it has been flawless all the way throughout, even with the roster change, right? They take out a duelist, they put in a duelist, and it looks just as flawless.
It's an important note to make, too, the roster change. Not many teams that are sitting at the position that these teams are in have actually made roster changes in more recent history. A lot of them kind of stuck with what worked for them throughout the year. Looking specifically at the teams that we really know, being M80 and the Guard, those teams kind of came in at the start of the year with a plan and they stuck to that plan. But this team, they bring in a duelist towards the tail end of that second split. Only played 6 games with the roster, despite the fact that the team was already doing well. I think they just recognized that maybe there was some talent left on the table that hadn't been picked up yet.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I used to believe at one point in time that if you make roster changes kind of like late towards your matches and like kind of upcoming tournaments, that it was sort of a hindrance. But I think with the fact that like Demon 1 and EG was sort of like been, they made their roster change right before their tournament and they look at their success, right? So I think for me, like, sometimes that roster change can kind of be like a boost to everyone, right? Like, you find that perfect piece, everything's clicking, you sort of have this honeymoon phase, everything just seems to flow extremely well from like, in terms of like team dynamic, in terms of team energy, motivation, things just click and you just get that kind of like boost and that momentum going into that tournament. So it's kind of a scary prospect.
And you can take a look at the team as well, because it's not a team that maybe everyone at home is going to know. And we have spent our harder time the last couple of days to make sure we get all of the pronunciations proper for these players. So I apologize in advance if anyone's like, that's not exactly right. We are trying to do our very best. But when you take a look at the Union here, Tanner, it is a team that represents a tremendous amount of talent in this Brazilian region and proof potentially that there's more skill there than we've already farmed out and sent to VCT.
Yeah, and when you look at the players off the top, Askia obviously being that duelist that we talked about, new to the team, kind of their point man for the squad, right? The duelist entering, this guy, zero hesitation. And then as you kind of go down the list right to left, NTK is going to be that support. Pank is another player that I look at for somebody who's incredibly consistent. And then not to mention Gu and Rafa here as players that are not only rocks for this team, but Rafa plays like a handful of agents, right? This guy, consistent as can be, but also filling where the rest of the team needs. Between Rafa and Pank, their roles kind of go back and forth, and it supports the team so well. It allows for an explosive Askia to do explosive things.
And I think there are a lot of similarities as well between like the way Rafa plays and sort of like the kind of like the head-to-head between him and Nismo as well. So Rafa he plays that really supportive KO, like for example on Ascent, he plays that super supportive KO, but at the same time when you swap over to the defense side, he's also willing to be the one that takes the first engagement for the team. He actually has some of the best opening successes on his team. That includes the duelist as well, who's close to 50-50. But Rafa has an insane opening success. So not only do they have like good supportive players, but they have really strong players in those support roles that can just take over the matches.
Tanner, these are two players too that you really were just talking about, is Askia and NTK, kind of the 1-2 punch for the Union. What is it specifically about them that just works so well?
Yeah, I mean, so Askia, obviously explosive duelist. I think you could look at these stats and you say, okay, he had 2 weeks of regular season and then the playoffs to play with this team, and he's putting up numbers like this. Right now, we give him a little bit of extra time to work with NTK, their support guy, who is also not only the best support coming out of the region from Split 2, but the best player coming out of the region for Split 2. So it's not just Askia who's having to get it done with NTK setting him up, because when Askia is removed from the equation, NTK is a strong individual player alone, which is, you know, you have a strong individual player who's playing selflessly. If you watch Askia, which you guys are going to see today, this guy has no hesitation, no stop, no nothing. This guy is always looking for more. But then when it falls short, you have a leader in NTK to rally the troops for the rest of the team after Askia's job has been done.
And it's important to note, too, that there have been a few teams throughout the Challenger circuit that have tried to make that swap. They've tried to bring in a duelist, and maybe it's had hit or miss success. It hasn't always been a one-to-one swap either. We've seen teams do the one-to-one swap, and it's worked. Looking specifically at, like, Narrate as an example of a player who came in with almost no experience and dominated, even though his team wasn't doing that well. And then you've got the Redux experiment that we also got to see in North America as well. It's also important to mention the Union's map pool. It's really good. It's really, really good. And that's why it's easy to look at these two teams and say, yeah, we've got number one teams from different regions, but these two really are the favorites because they were just so good in their respective regions. You can see it when you look at their map pool here. Really, there's one dark spot on this entire thing, and it's Haven. Haven is not a map that we should expect to see. I would almost guarantee they ban it. But you can see, Roy, it's not exactly a shining bright spot for them.
Guys, when is the last time we saw a team's map pool and saw this many 100%?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Probably M80.
Not even M80. M80 has a lot of strong maps. They have 200% maps. It's Pearl and Haven. But, I mean, we'll get to that after as well. But, I mean, like, dude, look at this map pool. This is insane. It's not just, like, 1-0 maps. Like, we're talking 5-0 on Ascent, 4-0 on Fracture, 3-0 on Pearl. They play Bind. They play every map almost, and they're insanely good on all of them. I mean, obviously, they haven't really had the much success on Haven, but then maybe they've had a little time off, so maybe they've cooked something up in that sort of off time.
You would hope so, because it really isn't a good map for them. 40% round win rates on both sides of the map, which is not obviously going to produce the success you would anticipate from a team who's been as dominant as they have. But you kind of mentioned it. The team that they're playing against, M80, yeah, they're also really good. Maybe their map win rates aren't as great. Maybe they don't have the 100% win rates, but this team is so scary good. And on top of that, Tanner, I feel like when we watched them play, we never actually watched them play to the full potential. They kind of didn't have to. It felt like at times they held back because they were okay, just kind of cruising to a victory. It's not to say they didn't try. They just didn't need to pull out all the stops. Then when we saw them in playoffs, it was like a completely different beast. Yeah. They continued to pile on top with new set pieces, aggressive strategies, things that we hadn't seen from them, things that reminded us of the old Ghost core that makes up this team. So I feel like there's still more that this team hasn't shown us yet. Yeah,
100%. Like you said, they didn't necessarily let off the gas, but they used the time that they had in already being qualified for the larger events, right? The midseason face-offs or the playoffs, to experiment a little bit. And that's what you need to see, right? When you're at the top, when you're the champion, everybody's gunning for you, right? Everybody, obviously, they're looking at the rest of the teams in their bracket or in their group in playoffs, but M80 has been the team to beat in North America. So for them to continue to innovate, it just means a lot for as the number one team. It's not going to be as set in stone. I'm very excited to see what they bring to this stage here in Brazil, because yeah, they've got some ideas cooking.
Here's the thing, like, there's two players we want to highlight, and that's Koala and Nismo, and there's a great reason for that. They've been incredibly powerful pieces of this roster for such a long time, but it's almost hard to select just two. Like, when you really look at this roster, Roy, there's so many individuals who step up on any given basis. And John, who was maybe the weak link at times during the first split rolling into the midseason faceoff, has been rock solid throughout second split and playoffs as well. Actually became one of the better players throughout that time while being the IGL. This team is so scary good, but these two players definitely kind of lead the charge.
Yeah, I mean, I think on John's defense, integrating the IGL to be like really comfortable kind of takes time. So I think on his defense, having the first first split. Wow, English is hard language. Yeah, John, it makes sense for him. And coming into the second split, he did really well. But I think Koala Noob, I mean, you saw how confident he was in that intro video. He was talking about, I think I'm the best duelist here. And you can just hear in his voice that he really believes it. He's not just saying that out loud. He's not just pumping himself up. Like, he really believes that he is the best duelist here, despite him having very similar stats to a lot of the other duelists, specifically in this matchup as well for Askia, who has incredible stats as well, right? Like, is he the best duelist? He proved himself in North America, but now we're kind of entering a sort of tournament where people have different play styles, timings, like the way they approach the game, the way they set up, the way they mid-round, the way they late round. It's all kind of different paces, and it might be kind of like uncomfortable territory for Koala. So we'll really see how good he really is.
Here's the thing. This team, so insanely good. Koala, I kind of agree with him. Maybe he is potentially the best duelist. When you watch him play, he certainly thinks he is, and there's no reason why he shouldn't after what he did in North America, but he's matched up against a different opponent, and we got a chance to sit down with both teams to talk to them about the matchup. Let's take a look.
Eu acredito que contra a M80 vai ser jogo não difícil, acho que vai ser jogo pegado. A gente vai entrar no nosso ritmo, a gente não vai entrar baixo nem devagar. Nossa expectativa é vencer, claro, porque a gente quer chegar bem nos playoffs.
We're definitely looking forward to play against the Union. We did watch some of their games, and they are the best Brazilian team, and we're the best NA team, so we obviously look forward to that matchup. And we play against them first game, even though it's just seed in for groups. It's not that important, but we're still looking forward for the matchup.
E eu acredito que eles não têm muito o que surpreender, apesar deles serem os favoritos do campeonato, porque a gente entende como eles jogam, como é o jogo deles, então eu acredito que o nosso time pode até se sobressair nesse confronto.
Vem ataque orbital pra cima do Xande, eliminado pelo Gu. Que maravilha!
Eles são um time que reage muito rápido no mapa, a gente não pode perder esses milissegundos aí, porque isso pode custar round pra gente. Mas eu acredito que eles não têm nenhum jogador especial, nada especial assim não.
I think it just depends how people deal with land nerves and stuff, and also like if they're on their day. I think Valorant, it's pretty hard to predict who's gonna win, who's gonna be in the final, so teams are just gonna be on their A game and be good.
Eu acredito que o nosso time é muito confiante, todo mundo sabe o que está fazendo, todo mundo é muito confiante em si, e isso transmite a confiança para o colega. Então eu acredito que tá todo mundo aqui para ganhar esse campeonato, né? Então confiança é o que não vai faltar.
Raises a good point. Everyone's there to win, and there will be no lack of confidence. But if you're going to be confident, you got to be confident in your map pool, and we'll see where the teams are going to take this series. As again, both teams come in with a pretty strong map pool, but the Union obviously had a weak point, and that weak point is taken out. So they banned Haven right off the rip. That's really not a surprise. And M80 continuing the permaban of Bind, which we saw throughout the Challenger stage. We have not seen them play Bind. They banned it 7 times since that second split started. So we're going to end up on Fracture, Pearl, and then should we need it, Ascent. And we've already got our agent select here ready, Roy.
Yeah, I love that. So there's nothing really big of a change here for the M80 side except the Sova pick could actually come out. That's going to be really interesting to see because they were running KO at one point. Now they swapped off to the Breach Sova, so that they've definitely cooked up something on Fracture. They've changed up their game plan. But on the other side, for the Union, they've kept it pretty similar. They still run the Sage, and this is it's kind of like an older meta comp. So I think M80 is pretty practiced against it. But I mean, again, different styles, different regions, they have sort of a different approach to the game, and that might play out right here.
I think the thing that stands out to me is sure the composition, although it's only the Sova that's new-ish for the team, it's who's playing everything, right? Nismo now playing the Flash Initiator in Breach versus a KO that they used to bring into this map. So the agents aren't incredibly different, but it's who's playing the agents. So I have a few questions about comfortability here for M80.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned comfortability as well. This is the first time this M80 roster has played on LAN in an official match environment, whereas the Brazilians maybe do have a little bit of a leg up in that regard. We've got our casters standing by, though, to see if that's going to be a factor. Sully, Upmind, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Bach. Bienvenidos a todos. Bem-vindos para todo mundo. Welcome on in, everyone. I only say this because this is the very first time that us here in North America have been a part of an international event at this level. And what a pleasure it is to not only see our region at this stage, but of course, the two best teams from each of their regions.
It is such a blessing, right? Unarguably, the two undisputed best teams from their respective regions, and ultimately by far M80 and the Union very quickly into this series. We're opening it up here on Fracture with M80 on the defense, and just off rip, Union, they love to play this aggressive style, these pistol rounds. Launching smoke. I actually back away early out of B main after that early aggression.
They don't stick around to try to go for a second wave either. M80, they are getting caught on their flank here. Nismo, what a beautiful position! And he might just get all of them. 2 for free, and EU's right there for the punishment. Union, they are still in the round. There is still a 2v2. A is empty.
And these two players as well are quickly on their flank. Tank has gotten very aggressive in towards defender spawn, checking for any early rotations. They should have a pretty good idea as to where these two players are coming from, and we'll see in a second where Gu elects to position himself. It's not the best crossfire between these two players.
No, he was just looking for the first tap, but this is going to be a little bit difficult here for M80. What do they have to actually get out? Only a single turret, trying to bait into contact, but Gu has the first angle. Not going to be able to pick up the second, but John QT, that just isn't enough. The Union up on top.
We got to see a very, very small sample of how Union will play this entire series and how the Brazilian region is going to play this entire event. It's aggression. Just off of rip, we saw a quick push, or actually we didn't see the quick push, but there was a very early kill in towards A main, and I imagine that's going to be a massive team fight, especially in this post play. You can see the crossfires that Union are setting up. It's one of the reasons why, Gus, they are the undisputed top team in Brazil. It's because of how good they are in their team fights and how technical they can be with their clears and how they play off one another. I think on the flip side, though, M80 are also very well known for how good they are in team fights, but I think for a different reason altogether. It's mainly because how deep their util gameplay is and how good they are at setting up players in positions.
I mean, it's not like Union have had the same explosivity that we've seen from M80. I mean, they switched duelists midway through the season. Askia, as we heard from the desk, he's only had 2 weeks of regular season experience, a playoff series under his belt.
Empty B site. Nobody here from M80, so this should be pretty free here for the Union. As all 5 M80 players will group up. We could see a couple of exit kills, maybe some damage done here in this smoke.
Not really. Xander goes in just for a bit of a shock when the aftershock comes in, but Askia, a bit of farmage, of course, with ult points. Nismo around the corner is going to go down in an instant. Union, again, just farming up the ult points early on, moving into the first gun round.
And we are for sure going to see a lot more action from that guy in particular. The man that just got the 3K, Askia. He's that new duelist that I think the desk very briefly touched on. There was a point in time where the Union had Havoc in the roster instead, but they ultimately swapped him out for Askia, who hasn't had like months of experience with this team, but he comes into the roster and he is just unbelievable to watch. He's a guy that I think Tanner put it best, goes and keeps on going. He's always looking for a little bit extra, and we'll have kind of the first gun round here. The style of the Union is always going to be this aggression early in these rounds, and we'll see a quick display of it here on this B site.
Yeah, look at the pace here, Xander. Alongside John QT, getting pressured out just a little bit. They are readjusting back over towards their own spawn.
Look how fast M80 are on this flank. 3 players have backed up in response to the 2 that have gone full dish control, but they have been revealed by breaking that piece of util. And for
now they have 2 coming from Arcade.
The Union are incredibly strong in these post plants, and I think M80 are giving them too much time to play this.
This positioning is so aggressive from the Union, however. So close up into Jenny at the moment. Pank in the underpass, looking for a couple of picks out of Arcade. This is such a tough position here for M80 to get out of.
There's Gu's ult, trying to punish Koalanu by himself.
It's just going to delay even more, though. Here comes Askia from behind. He can sweep up a bit. There's 2 players right in front of him, but he only knows about the 1. This is starting to become, again, very chaotic for M80. They just can't find a clean way into sight. Finally, they make it through, but time has been completely crunched off the clock. Koala Noob does pop in to take down Rafa, but that's on their way out. Union are up 3-0.
And that is a strong post, but that's something that you just can't give this Union team time to set up, and I think M80 waiting for that flank is what cost them this round. You give so much time for Union to set up, who had an orbital strike, that had a lot of post-plane util with NTK and his aftershock, and it's one of the large strengths that Union have going into this event, is they've typically boasted a 70% post-plant win rate, but on this map of Fracture in particular, and it's something that we'll have to watch out for, 80% win rate in their post-wins. You can see how good they are in these team fights, working off of one another, trading and swinging when the time comes to take a fight. It'll be key to watch how Union play these post rounds and specifically how they enter into these sites, as M80 will still have enough to muster a full buy after saving a handful of rifles.
Of course, the big thing that last round, the layering of the Brain Mutil, but still Walla Noob up front. There's no way. Who actually gets the pick back instead? Pink on the other side does pick down one over towards Dish. It's an early disaster for M80. Two players go hunting, and they both go down.
Yeah, trying to fight fire with fire is not going to work against a Union team. And I think for both of these teams, it's the first time they're going to experience playing against a team that is individually at the exact same level. Here's a fight there that Nismo needs to win, but Rafa just shutting him down. M80 trying to take some space back there was Nismo after losing full control towards Arcade. He just gets punished, and I think this is another round where if you're M80, you are definitely consider saving.
No potential going into the next round in terms of an actual buy, though. M80 down in the doldrums. But again, that round, we saw a bit of a different look from M80. Play a lot more aggressive than what we've seen before. And the first time that they pull it off, Union, they almost humbled.
Enemy remaining.
And I was honestly wondering going into this match if there was going to be a stylistic change from a team like the Union, because I think that their aggressive style worked really, really well in Brazil, because they were just, I mean, individually, they were leagues ahead above a lot of these teams.
A lot of teams respected them too.
Yeah, it was hard to play against a Union team that was able to switch up their like fast, aggressive pace to a really nice contact. So I was wondering if we were going to see maybe some difference in the way that we're going to play this event against these North American teams. But that's not the case. These first 4 rounds have been very quick from the Union. And we just saw Askia. He was the one given the spike to plant on the A site. He's going to have the showstopper here. And when he has that showstopper, that's when you really see this guy get aggressive. And he'll ult into sight and continue to press forward and take space. It's one of, again, the strengths of the Union. And I think this round, we'll probably see this ult come out and see what Askia wants to do with it. Again, a very early display of how this team is going to play this entire event with their aggression. And M80 calling their very first time out.
First time out here on LAN. You finally get to hear potentially the talking head Happy right behind him, but
that's not Happy. That's a lady.
They got
Happy.
There he is. There he is. Yeah, M80. They get to duke it out for a quick second. Again, this team has never been on LAN. Potentially mental might be a big thing that they're talking about.
Yeah, I think they've also never played against a team that is as aggressive as the Union. And that's going to be the thing for all the teams that are playing against these Brazilian teams.
100%.
Like Double O Nation is absolutely no exception to the Brazilian style. I mean, you think all the way back to...
They're the epitome of it.
Exactly. You think all the way back to the Game Landers era. I mean, Brazil is just known for that kind of pace, and M80 have never had to deal with that kind of style. And, you know, going into this matchup, I thought it would be a pretty, you know, contrast between these two teams. M80, a team that is notorious for their defensive setups, how good they are at layering util, whether or not that would be enough to stop this team like the Union. And so far, it hasn't. They're on an eco. And we're getting to the point in this matchup, at least in this first half, where the ult cycle starts to come online, and Askia has his overs towards a main. And this isn't a Union team that likes to fake a whole lot of the time. So I think Askia is going back towards Dish, where he can use his ult to get onto site with the rest of his team.
Has a lot of time to do so. Except for Util on the other side, M80. They're not exactly pushing the situation. No early information coming out from the team either. And that lack of information is essentially what's triggering what's going on at the moment. M80 just committing all 5 over towards that B side. Union, it's going to be a bit of a cakewalk again.
No ult this time from Askia. Okay, never mind. He pops it once he's onto the site. That is so crazy. He's still going to get aggressive, and you can see it here. Once he just go,
Ow.
That's a little bit rough. We're still in Brazil, but there's always got to be a Rose ult somewhere.
Oh, okay. Askia doesn't exactly hit the ulti, but the rest of his team, more than enough space, more than enough chances to kind of sweep this one away. M80, they're not exactly wrapping this team at the moment to try to get some exits. Again, just yet another part of the process here for Union.
Last player standing.
4 players walking away from this for the Union. Askia was already at 8,000, so this is a Union team that has got quite the bankroll to play with for the remainder of this half. And now M80 off of that timeout have brought out the Kuala Noob operator. And if you were watching at the very beginning, he had been talking about how he thinks that there's not a single duelist in the event that compares to him. And now that he's got the operator, we'll see if he can really slow down this Union style. I wonder what the change will be from M80, because they have tried the retake already in these first 5 rounds, and they have tried the aggression. But fighting fire with fire didn't work the first time. It looks like they're going to set Kuala Noob up very early with this operator to see if he can find an early pick. Asuka's going to be the main proprietor of this duel.
Exactly, work out early on. And M80, they need to get into some better positions quickly here. Union wrapping up on A at the moment. Kuala Noob does exactly what I just said. Repositioning himself up over towards Dish. Owl drone in front of him to try to clear out that space, but NTK dangerously close.
And it's just taken back the space with that fault line to maybe feign the fact that we could see another Askia entry into the B, or apologies, into the A site from Dish. And look at this, M80 have fallen for it as well. They're keeping 3 players here. We have an orbital strike from Xander, but he's just so committed over towards B main. We have a KJ set up as well towards tower that might buy them some time.
Oh, but he still ends up pulling out the orbital strike. It's just gonna delay a little bit. And Xander even slips in a headshot, but this Hunter's Fury, it's going straight for Askia. M80 picking away at the Union one by one going into this take. And it's the ultimates that have finally come into play for M80. 5 rounds into the game, John QT sweeping away another one.
30 seconds
Rafa
left.
all alone and a 1v5. So we go from pure Union dominance to now what seems to be an M80 flawless. Just about 20 seconds left of the round. It's almost impossible for Rafa to get this spike safely into the middle of sight. M80, finally a clean round getting under their belts.
Rafa will be guaranteed the ultimate if he goes down here.
10 seconds left.
But this round is like the perfect example of what I was talking about with these M80 strengths. We just got an after image of that kill. It was so funny. But yeah, I mean, this M80 team, that's where their strength lies and how good they are with this util. I mean, we saw a fault line going towards tower, comboed again. Hunter's through in the orbital strike, perfectly played. And yeah, here's that replay. The fault line comes in, John QT swings. This is what makes this M80 team leagues above the rest of these North American teams that we saw during Challengers. Is they were just so good with using their util and setting up for kills. It's what definitely sets them apart and will be a big stake in this matchup between these two teams. One team that is so good just in team fights, and the other that wins team fights because of their phenomenal util.
Kuala Noob with a huge opportunity already in front of him. 2 more players coming out of arcade, but he's repositioned himself in a really good spot in the middle of B.
They've kept Kuala Noob alone on site, backed John QT off so that he could use his ultimate, but now he gets back into the site as the revive comes online. Again, this is a Union team that doesn't do fakes.
What is this position here? At least he has a second player in front of him, but Pink, he can have a bit of a silver platter here. John QT pops, still Kuala Noob around the corner, but Kuala Noob, he has his head on a swivel. He just got a pick out of arcade, and he ends up going up again with knives. What is going on here, Kuala Noob? Askia still—
Oh my god!
Kuala Noob, clay pigeon out of the air, and M80 mow over Union.
And Kuala Noob is firing. Hit his peak during Challengers playoffs, and he continues with that form coming into round 7. That was an insane final shot, but M80 looking a lot sharper after that timeout. Kuala Noob's operator is huge in taking these early fights, and the confidence that that guy has off of that round is probably going to be brimming as we move forward. And Union doesn't reset them here, but that's a big round, I think, for the confidence of M80. They didn't win their first round on land, but they have picked up the pace a little bit. And here's a timeout call. That switch up from M80 has got Union a little bit frustrated now.
Oh boy, Union, again, you said it, not really known for their fakes. They continue to commit to that scenario going into site, and they almost had the gap. Askia was making his way through site. Kuala Noob, to an extent, was locked into tree. Union had the right idea, but that's the X factor again for M80. Pretty much anyone on this team can be able to pop off, but the one that we've been looking at for the last few months, of course, is Kuala Noob.
Yeah.
And that's just the moment for the man to pop off.
Been an exceptional player. He's, in my opinion, the best player coming out of the North American Challengers. And that was with the likes of Ye, with the likes of Oxy, and as well with Tex on the other side, the other North American counterpart in this event.
Even Nismo on his own team.
Yeah, he stands currently 7-4 at the moment. A 4K from that last one. And Union, 5-man send into this A site. More than likely going to see this Rolling Thunder come out. I imagine over towards like the sand spawn area where we'll probably see that Brimstone stim beacon and that Askia blast back out.
But this has to be scary. All 5 players coming out of A main. What's the answer here for M80? Askia gets himself into a good position early on into Sands, but still ends up getting taken down by Nismo. Nismo holds on, and this Rolling Thunder could be so huge. All 3 players here on this side for M80. 4 players here. There it goes. Rolling Thunder in. Rafa's right in the middle. Everyone is pretty much stunned here for Union. But even then, M80, they don't commit to this. The double cages is holding them, but the lockdown, this is going to lock them out for sure.
And there's a minute left on the clock here. Union definitely have time to make a rotate if they really wanted to. But M80, again, superior with his util, staggering their util to delay this Union team. Now they're stuck in towards A main.
Goo. Maintaining this front position right now, but the Union, again, we mentioned the lack of fakes.
And this is going to confuse M80 because of that tack timeout. They're probably thinking this could be a rotate, which is why we've seen John QT move already.
It's going to be Xander with the first contact. He doesn't have a lot to actually respond with. It's low HP, and Pink is able to take him down. It's all on EU. Was only able to get one. John QT with all to do. 1v3.
Such a chaotic round. 2 ultimates used, and I think Union stay in this because Rafa sends a really nice double slow orb setup in between this like drop in the double stack box that I think caught EU, or I don't think it was EU, it might have been Koala Noob out in the open.
Impeccable kill.
And John QT will do what he can to try and put damage onto this Union economy, but this crossfire is just impeccable. As soon as contact's made, one is going to swing off the other.
Oh, and the HP.
Post plants again. Exceptional here from the Union as they pick it up 62 off the timeout.
Rafa doesn't heal there, and John QT potentially has a chance. But that's a big opening finally back for the Union. It was starting to get a bit scary, though. All 5 on the south side going into A main. They even had to readjust a bit. M80, they didn't exactly maintain that front side positioning. EU tried his best, but there wasn't any utility to actually be able to stop them. They were just relying on the firepower.
Really great reclaim here as well from the Union, taking their time, forcing John QT to rotate. Again, that tactical timeout probably putting a little bit of worry on M80's minds. Again, this isn't a team that usually rotates and does fakes, but that was the first time that M80 were expecting it. Here's a little bit of aggression here. Quality set up in an early spot, but no picks found, and I wonder if Union are going to be quick to act over towards Arcade.
They're out into B. Arcade, fully empty. M80 forced back into tree, and that's a huge kill. Taking down Rafa. Rafa could have had a bit of a party. It's going to be the 5v4, barely any util.
But this is, again, where the Union are so powerful. And the 80% post-plant win rate coming into this event on Fracture. And this is what Askia does best.
The patience. It's perfect. Askia gets absolutely punished. Now it's a 2-man advantage for M80. They can absolutely waterfall this site. Who's going to be the only man to actually hold it down here? But Pink has an opportunity to whittle it down, but it was the same thing with Askia. Both Pink and Askia not able to do their jobs here. Pink not able to get the hit. Orbital strike in the middle of sight to try to take out the man in tower. And Pink still stuck in Jenny, still in a 1v1. And the defuse does go in with him stuck in a box.
I won't lie, this is a weird post-plant from the Union. I mean, Goo had the orbital strike, but it looks like he wanted to use it to try and net themselves a kill. It's just unfortunate that Askia as well gets caught off guard in defender spawn, but props to M80 for making this retake a lot more slow pace and not getting overwhelmed by the Union. They play their picks, and Union kind of just gets separated in this one. Like, there's a lot of solo fights happening, which isn't typical from a team that is so well coordinated in these post plants. And when it comes to swinging off one another, M80, we trade rounds for the first time. I don't know if you heard that, but he asked, do these guys understand English? All right, because I think they're hollering across like what their strats are. So. Or at least talking some trash across the stage.
I'd like to think so. Wall ended. Already dwindling down to 30 HP. He's gonna go all the way down to this nade. And it's not even the nade. Shot comes in from NTK at the same time. Xander still holding down the A site. Tank is gonna be walking into the alarm bot. Everyone else water falling into sight.
Oh my!
A massive hold to take down one, but even bigger from John QT. Hank left on his lonesome. 3 players in front of him, both behind the cage. And he's not able to do anything with it. huge round for M80.
Yeah, and for a lot of reasons, a massive swing one against the Union's economy. They're going to be reset here. The first time we're going to see them on an eco round. M80 might be able to bring this back 6-6 on a map that Union have been incredible on throughout their challengers. And
yeah,
this is the first time again we're going to see them have a reset. They use the Showstopper, which gets absolutely nothing against Nismo on site. Just one fault line slowing down that push, separating Askia from the rest of his team, so there isn't that instant trade. We don't have the, I can't see the minimap. There it is. Union expecting a full push. And here they are again towards the B site. No op this time, high-low.
Rafa gets demolished on the hero rifle. High-low does break apart. There's nobody else here, but oh my! NTK! He lines up the stars basically through the smoke, luckily getting 2. How does he get 2 out of that? Okay, M80.
Pank, hold on, might find a double here if he's not... Oh, if he doesn't get revealed early, and he did. Quality given us a fraction of a second to set up, but Union walking their way into the B site. NTK, a huge double.
It just hurts to even watch. Koala Noob. Oh my goodness. A 1v2 is made a little bit possible. Doesn't know the man in tower. Flash in his face, however. This is starting to get a bit more worthwhile here for Koala Noob. Again, the economy of Union still down in the dumps, but NTK cuts the bleeding early. And what a round from NTK, an eBay thrifty to push Union over the edge.
And it's a full contact, something that Union, I was expecting a lot more of in this half, is those contact plays. They walk up, swing together like the pack mentality to make these trades happen. And it happened here finally, over towards B tree. Like 3 players are grouped up, and yes, the first kill does go the way of M80, but NTK with his rifle is able to find a triple with a double coming off of that first kill that goes the way of M80, winning the 4v5. And bringing the op out of the M80 hands. We don't have that op anymore for Koala Noob.
It's so pivotal, especially in this type of position. 2 players right behind him. He would want that first connection. Have the 2 rifles behind him. Rain down bullets. Instead now M80. They've left one man stranded on an island over on A.
Here's that contact. No time for M80 to react.
It's pretty much all done for M80. You have a couple pieces of util to try to get back into this, but Union all 5, and they're taking even more map control right now.
And a rolling thunder as well. As soon as the wall gets tapped out, Koala Noob does at least find one on Rafa.
That's a huge one to start. Everyone else from Union backing out into A main. Only 1 in dish at the moment. There's nothing in the middle of sight. If anything, it's actually M80 util. The nano swarm's still sticking around. They have a single smoke. They can cross into sight. This is starting to work. They're crossing in. Xander able to pick away at 1, but there's still 2 more to deal with. Making only 1 more to deal with. He's gone. Pink left again on his lonesome.
It's not at half yet.
Being denied, and the orbital strike ends up recharging and coming in huge for M80 to finish off the half.
And this was a great retake from M80. Putting all 4 players into the retake situation and recognizing where Union were playing from. Koala Noob pushing in towards A main from the front, and then there was another one coming through the doors. I believe it was EU as well. And M80 bringing us 5-7 from their attack, from their defensive side. But Union still a 2-round lead. The strongest side of Fracture being their attacking side. Now on the defense, we'll have to try and win out this half entirely. This is where we can expect more aggression from Union, taking early map control, but this is interesting. We're not seeing like I think the last time they played Fracture, it was a 4-man push towards B tree. It's only a 2-man with a fault line set up in towards A. We'll have to see quick rotates. Rafa, I think, with a wall ready early towards Arcade to slow this push down, so we should have quick rotates or at least a quick flank from Union.
You can see kind of the idea here from M80, like you said. There was that big push over towards Arcade. M80 has 4 here to try to hold it down. A Sage wall early on over an Arcade for them to safely fight tree. This is a great idea from Union, and they capitalize.
And that kill on John QT has told the rest of M80 that they've pushed him towards our tree, so we can take Arcade for now. Jeez!
14 HP, and Pank somehow gets the kill. They knew exactly where he was, and okay, all right. If there's anyone that can take Pank out, it's himself. Koala Noob and Xander need to run away. They do pick up the ult orb on their way out. There's already a rotator going into the middle of that A site. But M80 got completely halted there.
And Union doing a good job here of not overcommitting a player on this side and giving up 1v1s. NTK's at a spot where he'll buy time. That is such a well-timed aftershock. Buying a couple of extra seconds for the flank to initiate an A main. This will be a difficult one for M80 to win out, even with two of their strongest players.
Last
Gonna
player
push the
standing.
situation.
30 seconds left.
It doesn't work out in their favor. 34 HP. The only thing that Xander can hope for is the spike plant to try to get that ult orb. And even a kill. Charging up even more, but that's a huge round for the Union opening up the second half.
You gotta absolutely love seeing the success that Pank has had. Probably one of the unsung heroes of the Union, him finding that kill on tower, essentially halting that entire exec from M80. At 17-7, by the way, as a Cypher, or 17-8 now, excuse me. And there's his kill. Like, literally all the odds are stacked against him. He's got two players on his back, but he still manages to get a kill, putting Union in such an advantageous position. And you see again these team fights, how good they are, and working off of one another. And if this round going the way of a Union, that might be a very painful round for M80 to lose in this map.
This next round's gonna be even worse. Look at the buy here for M80.
They've actually forced into Stingers. Surprisingly, this isn't something that we see a lot from them, even when they get the spike down.
Union win here to go all the way up to 10, basically. Union backing up to the hills. Rafa, this
Great
is yet
wall.
another good hold off of the sage wall, though. He can reposition himself back into sight to try to help out Pank, but never mind. Rafa is gone in an instant, and so is Pank.
Overwhelming this Union defense, giving them no time to breathe, running them down with Stingers. And Union on this retake, it's I feel with the numbers, it's going to be difficult.
Oh, the two-man advantage here for M80. Askia even getting stunned up. This starts it off pretty well. Nobody up in tower, up close. Askia could actually get a kill or two in his own favor against the pistol. This is a massive opportunity for Askia, but his teammates are going down anyways. The tragedy here, he was in a good position, but everyone else dwindles. And M80, a miracle buy.
Making Stingers work. I don't think Union were prepared for something like that. I don't think they really expected the force. Again, M80 aren't typically a team that will force in those second rounds, even when they lose. So whatever prep you had from Union, you definitely weren't expecting this kind of play. Quality was a massive entry as well. And there was confusion because I was curious because there was such a focus on the Sage Wall drop by Rafa from Pank on the site, and there was even a flank that John QT was able to pick off Rafa, making Pank's life just so much harder. Now let's reset Union here. And kept M80, I feel, in this map. A risky force works out in their favor.
100%.
And off of this round, M80 are going to utilize the fact that they have lesser guns and definitely trying to abuse these ult orbs and charge it up. You already see EU getting on the one.
Yeah, but Union nor M80.
And look at M80. In these rounds in particular, you expect a lot of aggression from Union, like trying something cheeky, and M80 are certainly ready for it.
Yep, exactly. Just trying to lay down the net, trying to catch everyone from Union, try to walk in. That's exactly what happens. NTK loses out on patience, walks out first. Xander even takes down Askia right after. Who might get stranded. The rest of M80 spilling into the middle of B, but again, the only thing you could really expect from Union was a push there. They had to do something desperate.
Easy for Pank here, watch.
Oh, yeah. Light.
Easy for Pank, okay.
Oh, please. He picks up the rifle, almost able to really make a disaster
I don't
out
know
of
what
it
is
for
going
M80.
on.
Hold on now. Rafa starts it out with a double pump, picks up the stinger, and is looking to do some damage.
Not even just damage. I think he's looking to win out the round entirely. But the stinger in these long distance situations is definitely going to hurt him. And this is a nice crossfire between these M80 players.
It's going to be tough for him to make it past EU already. The stinger long range. Any other gun there, you could potentially win that out, but Nismo still wins it with 10 HP. M80, that is sweat off their brow, though. That was pistols for Union.
Yeah, certainly a good bit of damage there from Union. And kind of just collateral damage from this shorty from Rafa. I was thinking, if Pank does get that bulldog, there's a round where there's a round in the multiverse where he wins off of just that bulldog pickup. And M80, that's definitely a face of release from Nismo.
That goes there.
And one round separating these two teams. We'll finally have the first round. We'll see how Union will want to map out the rest of this half.
Here we go. Finally, The quick M80 style, just trying to shock Union, and indeed, it's making them run for the hills immediately. The Breach had to back up for the aftershock.
And this is what Union love to do. They maintain back site control on their offensive side, so the retakes are a lot quicker.
They're fighting it so hard. Raises on the front side, same thing.
Ridiculous!
Everyone from the Union are up front and center, ready for a meat grinder. And Rafa from behind even makes the job even more difficult for M80. Union mow over M80.
And I think if you're M80, you have to be prepared. If you've done your homework, you know Union love to stick around on site. Players like Pank and players like NTK will just sit in smokes and get aggressive in A main, push in towards that sand smoke, and they will catch you off guard, which NTK does here absolutely perfectly. Just sitting around the smoke and Pank up top towards tower, like it's a perfect crunch in towards sand. And a huge round for Union. After doing so much damage in the last round, the economy from M80 is going to start to dwindle, and it's going to hurt a lot here in these upcoming rounds.
Oh, and they already pull everything in their arsenal.
And this is that swing round. M80 need to win this one or they'll get reset here.
It's going to be Koala Noob fishing for the first pick as everyone else on the south side for M80 holds their positioning. Dish is currently being taken.
Camera with an... okay, never mind. I thought for a second the nade was pointed towards Arcade, but it's pointed the other way. They've got a camera set up here on B. A very passive look coming out from Union. And M80 literally don't know what to do. Like, they were not... I don't think they were expecting this. I certainly wasn't expecting this style from Union. Switching it up immediately after a round like that is crazy confusing for a team like M80.
And it's similar to the last round where M80, the further they go into a site, they're essentially risking running into a pocket of Union players.
Did Goose spot him? I don't think he did. Okay, now he definitely knows that there's a player around there. And he's one kill off of his ult cycle. Same thing with NTK. So a pretty deadly round coming up. A nice nanostorm to force these players out of tower.
Didn't hit.
But a fake coming out from M80 as they swing back to the A site. You still have Rafa in the middle of it. He's used his wall to cover up A main. I don't know how early that was popped, so he can fully focus towards Dish, and he's got a nice trap wire as well to assist him.
Yeah, still the trip.
Look at this from Pank, this is what he loves.
Here we go, Pank.
Didn't see him.
He's in a golden position. Still a couple more players to jump right over him. They still haven't spotted him. They still haven't seen him. They're still not.
Nah!
Here comes Pank, bringing the pain, and he's only able to get one, but it's Rafa from behind to capitalize. EU is gone, and Union come out of the round with a bang.
A ridiculous hold from the Union. I've seen Pank do that so many times, bro. He just sits, first he pops the cage, will sit under it, and the smoke timing as well from his teammate, Goo,
criminal,
is perfectly timed. That's why this guy has 20 kills, and on the defense, he's an absolute menace. One of the best anchors coming out of the Brazilian Challengers region. And to make a play like that in such a high-stakes round, M80 getting reset, that will be such a painful loss. Koala Noob will save the operator. But that's all they really have going into this.
Smoke's down.
And Union, even in this type of round where the eco could be a bit of an issue, they've actually gone away from that hold mentality that they've had for the last 3 to 4 rounds. They are going hunting a little bit more. But this is simply Union giving themselves an opportunity to be able to respond if M80 had some sort of off strategy for the round, had some sort of rush, as you would expect going into an eco.
And this deep wall from Union is giving them a lot of confidence in this A hit, especially with this cam spotting towards Arcade. It's what damage can M80 do at this point in time. There's not a lot that will be done to the Union economy. Maybe you can pick up some ults, especially for John QT, or apologies, EU, who would definitely love to have a kill here in a second. He's been lurking towards B. The wall's been passed, but how quick to get into this site? Union, I imagine Hank is going to look to fight around here and see what damage he can do early on. There's Pank again, a master amongst these smokes.
Either NTK or Goon gets a kill here, and huge ultimates on the board. The Raze nade almost doing a lot, and Askia still actually able to take down Nismo. M80 have dwindled down to 3 players, and the Molly didn't even do anything in their
He's
favor.
just gonna stick it through, yeah.
And NTK is just hunting. Union, confident going into the post plan for good reason. M80, they only had a couple of paper clips to really use.
And that's a lockdown, not essentially wasted. You definitely see the idea, but I think it's just not the best situation to use it. You're in a 3 versus 5, and you're gonna try and make a retake happen. You need to buy time for this lockdown, and Just unfortunately, everyone goes down on site. Again, Pank finding that one kill, giving space to his team, an entry point back into the site is, you know, I just feel the lockdown there could have been saved for the next round, but you see the idea from M80 as they use their final timeout of regulation. We've got 4 ultimates, by the way, for Union going into this next round. And we're more than likely going to see another steadfast defense from them, which they've been playing extremely well so far.
It's tough to even tell what has been overwhelmingly successful here for M80 because they've tried multiple different styles. They have tried to kind of push and pull some of that early contact from Union, try to fake out. You know, the double hold a couple rounds ago from M80 over on B, I thought that was it. I thought Pank would just get shut down.
Oh my God,
I thought the Sage on site couldn't be able to do anything. But that's really the effect of Pank, right?
Dude,
Gosh, that smoke play was criminal.
I know, and we're going to see a lot of that. Like, we've got Pearl coming up, and they haven't played it, like, I don't think super recently, at least not in the semifinals or the upper finals of their region or the grand finals, but we're going to see a lot of Pank just sitting in smokes, and if we get to a third map of Ascent, be ready for him to like play some crazy setups as well. Again, probably the best, I think, anchor in this event right now, and that's with the likes for the North American viewers of M80, where you've got John QT, who hit his absolute peak lately.
Oh my gosh. One of the best in the tournament.
M80 ready for aggression here. Pank has gotten, you know, he's got confidence, so I don't blame him for going for this kind of play, at least maybe a lurk. And this is great from Pank.
Oh yeah, they've been humbled so many times.
4
pushing
players
deeper
coming
and
his
deeper.
way! The time maker, we're kidding me!
No way! How does EU get the kill there? He was flying!
And that will be the M80Q. That aggression towards B main will send them towards B. They know they've gotten the pick there.
Oh, and Rafa almost getting spotted out by the Owl drone, but still has the op to use, still has the opportunity to just inch out of the angle, and indeed capitalizes on one.
You're serious?
Getting another one. Rafa! Mowing him down. A double bump at the end. Might have just given Union map point here. EU stranded, 45 HP. And it all blows up in his face. Union 1 round away from taking a map off of the North American champions.
Forced to fight early, and Rafa, he stands unbelievably tall in towards tower. Like the initial peak, you saw it, look, you'll see it. He realizes that he gets fault line. He's like, well, I guess I kind of have to fight. After this first goes like, oh shoot, I kind of have to fight now.
Oh my.
And there was a fault line that I think connected onto Xander. His own teammate, Nismo, sent a fault line that allowed that trade. I think Xander, or apologies, Nismo swings out of that smoke expecting Xander to have that angle covered.
Rafa looking for more, has the stage wall right in front of him. There goes the dash. He is scrambling a little bit, not able to inch forward towards yet another angle, and a rolling thunder in his face.
Do it again.
Can he do anything with a double pump? No, he can't. NTK is able to get 1 kill back, but that was just the one lurking over towards Dish.
We'll see what Goo can do here by himself. Askia with a showstopper. We could definitely see some kind of rolling thunder combo here. But that missed shot from Quality might cost him, as that rolling thunder is definitely going to hit a lot of players. But a great orbital strike to counter. Askia still finding one.
And Goo finds another. M80. Things have flipped entirely. They had the advantage, but now the disadvantage. EU out in the open. He's gone. Koala noob. The hope for M80 and map 1 is dead and gone. Union take a map off of M80.
And a lot of people, I think, were expecting M80 to come into this series with a lot of confidence and definitely be one of the top teams, but this was a Union team that brought the heat on all levels.
Yeah, again, realistically, the entire time, we didn't really see a true successful mentality for M80. They had tried a couple of things throughout the game, but realistically speaking, Union had their number the entire game. This is probably one of the most dominant performances that we've ever seen against M80.
And M80, we've been able to watch them through all of Challengers for months. We've seen the development of this team. They hit their peak during Challengers playoffs, but I mean, again, this is probably the first time that M80 has played up against a team with that individual ability similar to theirs, and Union are a team that are extremely good, and they're coordinated in those team fights.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is starting to get a bit spicy. The Union, the #1 team from Brazil, currently has the advantage over the #1 in North America. Lines are already being drawn here. Let's see how much bolder that line can get after the break.
glad that they decided to wear their work uniforms to broadcast as well. The khaki kids looking great. They've got that coordination just like we do on the desk, so I can't really fault them for it. But that was kind of what people should have expected. I don't think it's what people actually expected. I think a lot of people came into today thinking, okay, M80, #1 team coming out of North America. Obviously, like, North America's the best, whatever. That's what people are always going to say. And even as a North American fan and a huge homer, I knew that Union was a serious threat, especially on a map like this. Fracture is not a map that really plays to the strengths of M80. So, Roy, when I'm looking at this, this kind of seems like it's the way we should have anticipated it would go.
I mean, we had no idea what to expect, if I'm being completely honest, right? Like, there's been a little bit of a lull since sort of the last tournament that M80 played in until now. So there's so many like X factors or sort of question marks in terms of what they've worked on, what they've sort of developed in their game plan. But I mean, honestly, talking about M80, I think the Union just really had a really strong game plan. They had a phenomenal gameplay. They knew how to do their individual skill to tie in all their game plans together, and it kind of showed.
And not that it's anything different than what we would have expected the way Union to play, but I think they really used this comfortability that they had and their play style versus the uncomfortability of M80, right? In this one, I was talking about it during the game with you, Roy, where, you know, you can know a team's going to be aggressive, but you don't know the pressure until you really feel the pressure. That plus the land stage for M80, there was the uncomfortability, a brand new comp that we saw. I think if you put both of these teams together, and even if you said firepower for firepower, they are like dead even. The weighing factors, the factors outside of that heavily favored the Union here, and I think it showed a very rocky start for M80, and then they could just never get back on their feet.
I think that right column top stat is pretty indicative of how things were going, at least in the early stages for M80. It didn't really feel like they ever got a round started right. It felt like they were constantly on that back foot, and Union exploited. All credit to Union. I think their mid-rounding was fantastic. A lot of adaptation, a lot of shifting around the map. That's when M80 started to at least figure things out. They started to become a little bit more mobile. They're like, okay, they got to kill here, which means they're not going to go there. They're going to go over here. We got to kill here, which means they're going to come this way. They started to read them a little bit better, but it was really in that second half, though, that they couldn't keep up.
And I think for me, that's kind of like the strong talking point for the Union as well, right? Is like they have such a strong balance between individual timings and individual playmaking that sort of ties in their team play and ties in their kind of like cohesive strategy, where it's sort of difficult to predict. And I completely agree with you, Tanner. I think studying a team is one thing, but feeling that pressure in the server, having these players that have the confidence to make these plays in such a high stress environment is so difficult to deal with in the moment.
There were minor pieces, too, that maybe fell a little bit off. Like, at times, it seemed like maybe the utility wasn't exactly perfect. Maybe someone's going in a little bit too soon before a flash comes through or a dart lands. You know, we saw that one round where it was a miss molly. That was in round 18 when we thought, okay, this should be a pretty easy win. Xander, who had been playing fantastic up until that point and was the top performer for M80 in that first map, just misses the molly. And the molly doesn't land, so they think the spike is molly. They drop a KJ ult on top, so it's like, okay, they should be able to prevent them from getting any semblance of sight control for a little bit. But the molly is just a little bit further north, a simple smoke, and they're willing to sit inside that KJ ult because they know that they're not going to fight them with pistols. So they got the round for free. Union's probably sitting there like, okay, that was thanks. Like, that's awesome. And there's a few more times like that. You know, we see the round where you've got Rafa and Tower with the op and they're trying to challenge.
Yeah.
Fault line doesn't hit. You got a couple of dry peaks. They actually end up fault lining each other, and it turns into a triple, which could have been potentially mitigated or taken down to even just a single kill had it been played even just slightly different. So fine tuning is really the name of the game here for M80. But the series is not over yet, right? I mean, Roy, we've got more maps to play.
Yeah, we have potentially 2 more maps to play, Bach, according to my math, if I'm doing this math correctly.
Never do math on desk, man. You never do math on desk, man. It always comes back to haunt you.
But yeah, I mean, if there's one thing I know about M80, Bach, it's the fact that they have a really good job at bouncing back. I think they're going to recover really well going into the second map, which I'm sure we'll be talking about after this break. But I mean, it's not over. It's not over until it's over.
Yeah, I think the one thing is M80 are resilient and they do learn from their losses.
Well, we will find out if that's going to be the case. We're going to go ahead and throw things to a very quick break when we come back. Map number 2 to see if M80 can bounce back and force a 3-mapper in our very first series for Ascensions America. We'll be back in just a bit.
we came from like, you know, being called scrimmers and stuff like that to this, and so like it meant the world to like get into that league and like perform against these top teams.
Here comes the jump peek from EU, and there's just too much here. Trent has to be perfect. How much do they give him? The answer is a flash on the opposite side, and there's nothing behind it. It's down to the defuse here for what could be the last round, and that will do it. M80 on Lotus. They pulled the pin on Haven.
My name is Alexander Xander Dituri, and I'm a controller player for M80. My name's Qualanoob, I'm 20 years old, and I'm the jet operator for M80. My first teammate I'll say is John Cutie. He's the IGL of the team. John, he's like the stable anchor for our team right beside me. I'd probably say we're both really good on the anchoring positions and like lurking and stuff like that. Xander, he brings in like insane anchoring skills. Every time they like execute onto his site, he's getting at least 2, and he's making like the retake super easy for us. EU, he's our Sova / like fade initiator. He's always gathering like a lot of good info and helping us set up in the mid round. And then we have Nismo, who's like our duelist flex like hybrid player. Nismo honestly brings a lot of like good utility usage, so I'd say like watch out for like all of his like flashes and stuff like that. And then we have Qualanoob. He is the duelist player for our team beyond Gen Rays. The playmaker and the entry and the space taker and all that. Our team's special and unique because everybody on this team's insane. Like I say it all the time, but like every player is like best in their role. They were the best in the role in Americas, and they're gonna be best in the role at Ascension. And like you can check the stats too if you care about stats. We're just all at the top. We're all playing super well. If I'm having an off game, like Xander will pop off. If he's having an off game, like anybody can pop off. We're just so explosive. And when we're feeling confident and like we're actually being very proactive as a team, like I feel like nothing can really stop us. I feel like we just keep going. Like even if it doesn't work out, like our proactive play or something, like someone instantly like boom, like okay, that's fine, let's go do this. I think what makes our team special and unique is probably our play style. I feel like a lot of players or a lot of teams don't play like us. I feel like we're very loose, very aggressive, very explosive. I feel like a lot of teams lack this, and I think that's like our strengths for sure. At the end of the day, I know every one of my teammates, including myself, are capable of being on a franchise team, but I really don't want to be in a situation where like we lose and like we split up, maybe to take our own franchise tryouts or like offers. It would be like a shame. We worked so hard as a team for like 8 months straight, like no stopping. It would be a really like sad feeling, like we worked this hard to just not make it. Like we want to make it together. We've worked hard, and I feel like it'll only benefit us if we make it together because of how long we've been together as a team. Message to the teams: don't peek us. We'll shoot you in game.
Thank you for the clarification.
Just making sure.
Yeah.